Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and as promised, I want to sit down in an individual video talking about the future of video games, because there's been a lot of awareness built up around game preservation and the importance of being able to take that game disc, that game cartridge, throw it into whatever console and not have to worry about the likes of updates, patches, server checking, emulation, none of that business. Just kind of like the PS2, GameCube, original Xbox, pretty much anything before the patching days where you had to worry about online checking. Just pure gaming is what people are looking for. And of course, this video is coming off the back of a lot of news stories breaking, starting off with the PS4 and how if the CMOS battery dies and you can't connect to the PS4 servers, that's it. It's done. You can't play your games. Whether you have them pre-installed, you own the disc, none of that matters. You cannot play them. And then it's been learned afterwards that the PlayStation 5, according to Does It Play, a Twitter account that's been researching this stuff, they say that Breaking, a kind volunteer, has dismantled their PS5 to test the C-bomb for us, and the initial results confirm that the PS5 is also affected. Initial results indicate that all digital games will cease to work in a C-bomb scenario. More details to come soon. So there's been a lot of concern on the PlayStation side of things that, oh my gosh, this console, it's a, as a lot of people have said, ticking time bomb, and people want to see PlayStation be proactive about something before it becomes an issue. That's what's actually really unique about this conversation. Normally, the games industry, and a lot of my content even, which I would like to change at some point in time, is reactive. Something happens, you respond. This is one of those rare scenarios where a lot of people in the games industry are saying, we need to talk about this now because 10 years, 20 years from now, this will be a problem. I would like to be able to take out my PS5 and play PS5 exclusive games, because who knows how backwards compatibility works, who knows who's in and out of the market, right? I imagine when we were younger and we were getting the Dreamcast and stuff, that we weren't expecting Sega to walk out of the console market and just start to publish games like, I don't know, Persona 5 Royal or something along those lines. So things can always change. We don't know who's going to be in and out of the market. So it's important that when these consoles release, that no matter what happens to servers and outside circumstances, that the reality is that I can throw a disc in there and I can play my games. And now I think while a lot of people have gotten on the back of PlayStation, Xbox may have it a little bit worse. So once again, this Does It Play account is really great because it's a community of people who are concerned with game preservation. They've been checking these consoles, providing information to people like me who care about game preservation but are learning about stuff with these new gen consoles. So right now, do you have to be concerned? No, but let's take a look at the Xbox side of things where, like I said, I think it is a little bit worse. So this account says, yes, that's correct. The Xbox is designed with a very nefarious DRM setup. Like C-bomb, this will one day render all software unplayable as repairs, formats, and new users will become impossible. On the PS3, 4, 5, this is not an issue due to its offline setup. No fix exists. Not only this, but Xbox One discs in the Series X console also require a one-time server activation. Once this server dies, they will be rendered unplayable. On PlayStation 5, a C-bomb, it appears discs still work offline and no activation is required. So what this means is that for your PlayStation 5, you're at least able to set up your console offline. So if you have zero connection to the internet, you can still set it up, throw the disc in, and be able to play it. Whereas with Xbox, you just can't set up the console, and even when you get in, let's say I wanted to throw, I don't know, My Hero One's Justice 2 into my Xbox. It's an Xbox One game. That's not going to work until it can connect and activate with a one-time server thing. So a lot of this can be solved through firmware updates, but what's interesting is that out of all companies, Nintendo stands in the best position, but even they are not really squeaky clean for the future. But fortunately, most games at this point in time are not impacted by this. Now, we'll talk about the nature of the CMOS battery in a second, but let's look at Nintendo so we can sort of lay out the rest of the landscape. So when it comes to Nintendo, they have games like Wolfenstein 2, New Colossus, where you have to just download the rest of the game. And in this case of Wolfenstein 2, it's 23 gigabytes and it's required. You can't just play without it. Now, I've seen Nintendo Life did an interesting video where LA Noire was one of those other games, and there was a way to work around it where they didn't know how far you could get, but you didn't need to download everything. So there are some ways you can maneuver around the Switch, but still, even that is not in a state where all games are truly playable. Now, if I'm missing out on LA Noire and Wolfenstein 2 out of a huge library where I could just throw in the cartridge, not having to worry about being connected online, I think that's an easy pill to swallow for a lot of us. But it's just quite interesting how things are playing out, where a lot of people aren't worried about this at the moment when it comes to the Xbox and the PlayStation because it's so far down the line. But this is once again one of those rare moments where people are being proactive, saying, let's figure this out now and avoid, if you're Xbox and PlayStation, the PR disaster in the making. It's good PR if you fix it nice and early. We don't have to worry about it whatsoever. But regardless, let's talk about the CMOS battery. So that's something that's been at the core of these issues with PlayStation 4 and PS5, and the way that these headlines have been rolling around. I'm not a tech guy, by the way. I'm learning, but I can tell you right now that the way some of these articles are being headlined and people are talking about it, you think this battery might be one of the hardest things to find when it's actually the value of like a fucking quarter, and you can see it anywhere. It's very easy to find. It's really not that hard to come by. And so these batteries are what is like powering the internal clock for the PlayStation 5, for the PlayStation 4. The challenge here is that to replace them, SpawnWave did a great video. I'll show it on screen now. You have to really dig into the console to get to replacing that battery. Something that you should know what you're doing before you do any of that. You don't want to ruin anything with your console, and some people are not comfortable getting their hands on all the tech, which I totally understand. It's definitely something you may want to hand off to an expert, and that can be a headache. It can take a while to get your console back, so it's not just a quick, pop open the back of your remote, flip out batteries, and call it a day. But still, just know that I think the battery is really less of the problem here. We saw on old Game Boy games and stuff, people are replacing batteries on that where you can just pop it out, put a new one in there, so you don't have to worry about your save files being lost or any of that stuff. It keeps the game alive, which is still really good. It's kind of funny how that has really transcended time, even up into the PlayStation 5. But what's really the issue here is the online connectivity, the demanding of being connected to the servers. And in the case of the PlayStation 4, it's really just to check trophies. So I'm sure there's a way for a firmware update for both these consoles to come out and say like, hey, you can set it up offline, you can throw your disc in, you can play it, you don't got to worry about anything. And that may not seem super practical for people as the internet becomes more and more of a thing. And some folks may even give Xbox a long leash because they're like, oh, they care about backwards compatibility, game preservation, legacy. And they have shown that. But what people aren't thinking about is Xbox's future. And guess where that is? Streaming. Xbox Game Pass is now on iOS. You can stream it to your PC. They're working on a smart TV app. Xbox Game Pass is their future platform. So you want to make sure the Series X, the Series S, that those bad boys, you're just able to play games and not worry about it. Be ahead of the game. Put on the pressure. We just learned with PlayStation and them keeping the PlayStation 3 and Vita storefronts around that your feedback does work. Now, what's good news here is that this same Does It Play account retweeted someone who had reached out to PlayStation support about this issue. And here's what they had to say. Hi, Harris. Thanks for contacting PlayStation support about your CMOS query. Sorry for the delay in getting back to you. I can confirm that we are currently investigating this for you, and we will be back in touch when we have an update. If you need anything else in the meantime, please let me know. Thanks, Jessica. This is a player support specialist at PlayStation Support. So the good news here is that PlayStation seems to be looking into it, and I believe that now, based off what we saw with the PlayStation storefront, that they are looking into it, and maybe we'll hear something soon. But I think it's important to still talk about it. And to be honest, the reason why is this a problem? Why are companies doing this? Maybe your next question. Why are these new consoles pretty much ticking time bombs, not built to last? And it's really because of the nature of the games industry. They love to resell you old things you've already paid for. Look at it, right? Why hasn't Square Enix done, say, a Chrono Trigger remake or a remaster? Why haven't we seen Bethesda go back to Fallout 3 and remaster it? Why hasn't Nintendo done a virtual console for the Nintendo Switch? It's because in the case of Nintendo, we can see it clear as day. They'd rather cherry pick awful games and gradually give them to you over time, keeping you subscribed for recurrent revenue. In Nintendo Online, you see the likes of Square Enix saying, hey, we'll give you one part of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, granted, fantastic game. Really like it, but they'll give you one part and stretch it out. Do you not see what's happening here? These companies have these, I call them ace in the hole, like panic button mode games, where you just go like, oh, we're in trouble. Fallout 3 remaster, quick. And you shit it out. Boom, there it is. Free revenue. Right now, these companies don't have to do that because they're in good standing. So why would they care about game preservation? It's about getting through this generation and on to the next. They're operating as a business, and it's one thing that's always pissed me off about gaming is this ability to treat it as just a business when it's clearly a melding of art and imagination and so many things from really our childhood, but coming to life. And I don't understand how business overrules so much of this, but it's clear that these are business funded decisions. Like, hey, can this PS4 get us through the next 10 years? Yes, it can. Okay, then when we release the PS5, get them in there, hustle them in there. We need them to move on within the 5-year release window of our PS5. Otherwise, we're in deep trouble. So all I'm saying is, I think it's very clear how these businesses are operating, and I think it's really unfortunate. So just know over time that I expect companies to continue to resell us old stuff because people love nostalgia. I love nostalgia. I get it. But more importantly is that I don't think some of the higher up suits care about game preservation, and that's a shame. I don't think you need to be a gamer to even understand, like, hey, I'm not the biggest movie buff, but I get why you would care about having access to all of your movies. Like, I understand just the general notion of that. For some reason, it's just dumbfounding how some of these suits end up in their positions. But anyway, that's all I've got for you in this video. Just a bit of a commentary on the current situation of modern gaming and where it's really heading. And I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts on this in the comments down below. So please do fire away. What do you think about the status of game preservation, the future of the likes of the PS4, the PS5, the Series X, and where the Switch is at? Let me know. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Be sure to join up on the Patreon. We got a lot of people there, great community being built up. I'm looking forward to interacting with more of you over there. Stay sexy, stay active. Love you all.